Hi, Ben here from Physio Australia, down in the Caulfield clinic today to talk about painful hips, in particular this idea of hip bursitis. And we're going to talk about the three mistakes that I'm seeing currently that are extremely common and that are setting you back from achieving a full recovery with your painful hip. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to give you a further insight into a blog post that was just written, which will be attached in the link below. So let's get straight into it. Three mistakes to avoid when you've got hip bursitis. And the first is quitting exercise. So with spring coming up and well and truly in flight now, a lot of people down here are starting some fun runs, 10K runs, half marathons and so forth. And they're starting to get some of that hot, burning, aching pain in their hips, which hurt when they stand on one leg or run or lie on their side, all those sorts of things. And so they come in, they say, I've got some hip pain, and don't worry, I've stopped doing all my exercise. And thinking, well, that's one of the last things that you should be doing. We don't want you to quit exercise. However, we may want you to modify what it is that you do so that you undergo a stair-step progression and can get you back to doing the things that you want to do in an appropriate load, depending on how your tissues are healing. So it's a mistake to quit exercise, but you may want to talk to your physio and your trainer about how much exercise you're doing and how you're performing that given exercise, particularly with, as I mentioned, springtime, there are a lot of running based activities and people do start to experience some issues with their hips. Brings me to mistake number 2 that I'm thinking is that thinking you have to put up with it just because you've got a painful hip. So it's an interesting one. I've got a few people, it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then, particularly a lady will come in and when we're questioning and working out what's been going on, they've had a painful hip for 8 months, 10 months, over a year, 18 months. And it's interesting to me. They say, I just thought it was something that I had to put up with. And once we go through and go through the rehab, they fail to realize how simple it can be to actually rehab a painful hip. Generally speaking, if you've got bursal symptoms, it's not the most complex thing in the world. There are always complexities with certain cases, of course. But if you're thinking that you have to put up with it, it's not your fault. It just means that someone may not have educated you as fully as they could have and gone through a proper treatment plan with you. But generally speaking, hip bursitis, the good news is there's a lot that can be done. It's a very treatable condition, and it's actually quite a common condition that we see in the clinic. So mistake number 2 is thinking that you have to put up with it. That's not true. There's lots that can be done. And leads me to the third mistake, which is kind of an old school thinking. Some people have it in their heads that bursitis automatically equals cortisone. Okay, so mistake number 3 would be resorting to cortisone before trialing a proper physiotherapy management plan. And there are quite a few reasons for this. One of which I'm going to mention is understanding differences between bursal symptoms or painful hips that we're now calling greater trochanteric pain syndrome. So pain on the side of your hip. People think they start to jump to conclusions and think that it's automatically bursitis. That may or may not be true. There are lots of things that can cause those symptoms. A swollen bursa is one of them. And if you do, leads me to another point, that if you do have bursitis as seen on a scan, don't panic, because it doesn't necessarily mean that is what's causing your symptoms. There's another key point that I'd like to mention with regards to cortisone is that there are other interventions that have been deemed equally as effective without all of the side effects. And if you click through to the blog, I've just left a link to one particular study that was comparing dry needling only versus cortisone injections. To cut a very long story short, the results of the study found that at 0, 1, 3, and I believe 6 weeks, the pain scores reported between two groups that were just randomly allocated to either cortisone and dry needling. So one group got cortisone only, one group got dry needling only. Dry needling performed as well as cortisone at each of those stages, which would mean that dry needling is not any less effective than cortisone when treating greater trochanteric pain syndrome, the authors concluded, which is good news, because if you think about it, we want to leave cortisone as a last resort. In some cases, if nothing else is working, sure, we've got that in our back pocket, but we don't want to jump straight to cortisone because it can have a variety of different side effects, and some people may not be indicated for cortisone because they've got other conditions when it comes to taking anti-inflammatory drugs. So that's something that should be thought of as good news, in the fact that, oh no, bursitis and I need cortisone is not necessarily true, and it's our third mistake. A key point that I'd like to leave you with is that when it comes to muscle or bone pain, think physio first, and we've got some quite good reasons for that. One is that lots and lots of studies for the conditions that we deal with are clearly showing that physiotherapy is at least as equally as effective as surgical or medical interventions such as cortisone in this particular case. Yes, different conditions are different, but that leads me to another point, is that when your physiotherapist is assessing you, if they feel that something is not right, they are in a very good position and are more than capable of referring you for any particular scans that may be done, or referring to GPs. I refer to GPs a lot to say, hey, something medical I think is going on here. It's time that you go and talk to the expert. And that's really, when that synergy occurs, is magic, because it means that the person's getting the best of all the different disciplines working in combination. But we believe that if you have the physio as a quarterback when it comes to muscles and bones, don't call your physio if you've lost a limb or something like that. Call the appropriate service. But you understand what I'm saying, in that your physio they deal with these sorts of issues day in and day out, so that they should have given protocols in place. And if you need further referrals, if you're one of those cases, then they're more than happy to give it to you. And if you're within that sort of 95% standard bell curve, they're more than equipped to be able to help you. So think physio first. It can really save you a lot of time, effort, and money. Which brings me to the Physio Australia top tip for today, which is find a physio that can answer these key 4 questions. So when patients come in, you want to know if you've got an issue, what's wrong? How long will it take to get better? What can I, meaning the patient, what can I do to help recover? And what can you, the physio, do to help me? So you want to choose a physio that can answer those 4 questions. And at Physio Australia, these are the 4 pillars really upon which our initial consult process was built. So it's standard protocol here that each of those 4 questions are embedded into our initial assessment. So when you come and see us, those questions will be answered as a matter of standard practice. Okay, so that's it. I wish you a very good day and happy springtime. If you're out there and you're one of these crazy marathon runners, I wish you all the best. Make sure you look after yourself. I'm off to do some treatment, and I'm going to be checking in with the UFC conference that will be happening in a few hours. All the best. I'll see you next time.